The U.S. and El Salvador doubling down on mistakenly deported man despite court order. Trump administration is actively defying the Supreme Court's unanimous decision of returning the wrongfully deported man from Maryland back to the United States of America.
The Trump administration is resisting a Supreme Court order to facilitate the man's return to the U.S., and El Salvador's president refused to send the men back in a White House meeting with President Trump. Senior national correspondent Terry Moran has the story.
Unfortunately, withholding is a final order of removal that is withheld, but the government can exercise that final order at their discretion. But there's a process to do that. The Trump administration did not do that. In that court process, you have to go through the details. You have to go through what this person has done, go through their background, and detail out exactly why the previous court order was wrong. They did not process this application at all. There was no due process whatsoever. When you look at all of the data that civil rights groups and immigration advocacy groups have compiled at this point, 90% of all of the people that have been deported to CCOT right now in El Salvador have no crimes, no criminal background whatsoever.
This morning, a stunning comment from President Trump caught on a live streaming camera before reporters were in the Oval Office, telling the president of El Salvador he'd like to send American citizens convicted of crimes to prisons in El Salvador.
I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's big. All right? It's not big enough.
Minutes later, with reporters in the room, Trump said he wants Attorney General Pam Bondi to see if the law allows this.
I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that.
They want to do this to citizens as well. Just remember, this is how it slowly but surely, it turns from something that the government is doing that is completely illegal to something that is legal and expected. It doesn't happen overnight. There's clearly a lot of appetite for this kind of violence from a big chunk of the population who does not understand how terrifying this is. And once you clearly deport them to El Salvador, to this terror facility, it seems like even the Supreme Court cannot demand that you bring these people back. America is officially within the 1930s Nazi Germany arc, the Burger Reich.
To send U.S. citizens to prisons overseas. In February, he said this.
I'm just saying, if we had the legal right to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat.
That the U.S. government must facilitate Abrego Garcia's return, calling his removal illegal. Trump at first said he'd abide by the Supreme Court's ruling.
If they said to bring him back, I would tell them to bring him back.
Now the administration says their hands are tied.
That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us.
This is a truly horrifying situation. It's unconscionable, it's immoral, and it is also unconstitutional. The federal judge who ordered his return will hear from the Trump administration's attorneys at a court hearing. We're, of course, talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is now entering his second month in the El Salvador mega prison after he was deported there on March 15th, 2011 to 2019, okay? Kilmar Abrego Garcia flees El Salvador to the U.S. at the age of 16 after M18 gang members extort his family and threaten to kill him and rape his sisters if they didn't keep paying. He moves in with his U.S. citizen brother in Maryland and lives there without trouble for years. Then comes, on March 28th, 2019, the PGPD arrest. Kilmar is arrested for loitering outside of a Home Depot while looking for day labor. A Prince George's County Police Department detective grills him about whether he's a gang member. He denies any involvement. 4 hours later, he is transferred to ICE custody without the PGPD charging him for any offense. In April 2019, here are the allegations. At a bond hearing, ICE claims Kilmar is a part of MS-13. They submit one piece of evidence, a gang field interview sheet, a GFIS, filled out by the PGPD detective that claims Kilmar is a part of MS-13. The GFIS says he was wearing Chicago Bulls gear, and two, a confidential informant allegedly claimed that Kilmar was a ranking member of the Westerns clique, which is in Long Island. Except there's a problem there. Abrego has never been in Long Island. He's never been in New York at all. So this evidence is fabricated. An investigation follows in the summer of 2019. Kilmar's lawyers reach out to the PGPD to investigate these claims. They find out that, one, police did not even file an incident report about his arrest, and two, the detective that had filled out the GFIS has been suspended for an unknown reason. In August 2019, there is an IJ decision At his final bond hearing, ICE declines to offer any evidence of gang membership other than what is in the GFIS. The IJ denies bond, finding that the GFIS is sufficient proof of membership at the time, despite noting its obvious flaws. Kilmar appeals this decision to the Board of Immigration. Now, withholding win, the immigration judge rules on October 2019 that Kilmar is ineligible for asylum because he filed the application too late, but the judge does grant withholding of removal, finding that it was more likely than not that he would be subject to persecution if deported to El Salvador. A removal order is issued, but with a restriction that one country he cannot be deported to is El Salvador. Then comes the BIA decision, Board of Immigration Appeals decision in December 2019. Kilmar appeals the bond decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals. The appeals board declines to find clear error in the immigration judge's decision to rely on the GIFIS document. However, he is released anyway because he had won a withholding of removal. He returns to normal life from 2019 to 2025. By all reports, Kilmar lives a normal life in Maryland with his U.S. citizen wife, their biological son, and his 2 stepchildren, with the work permit he received as a result of his grant of withholding of removal. He works legally as a sheet metal worker, joins a union, and raises his family in a D.C. suburb. He doesn't get into any trouble with the law in these years. And then on March 2025, he gets sent to CCOT. On March 12, 2025, ICE and HSI agents arrest Kilmar in his car in front of his son. 3 days later, he's transferred to Texas, where, thanks to an admitted administrative error, he is put on a plane to El Salvador and sent to CCOT. In an immigration court, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was found to, 1, not be a member of any gang whatsoever, but more importantly than that, specifically not deportable to the country of El Salvador. And that's precisely what the American government did. He had actually given information up on a competing Salvadoran gang, which put his life in the crosshairs if he were to ever return to El Salvador. He had sufficiently proven in court that he was endangered. Trump administration officials, on the other hand, claim falsely that Abrego Garcia, who escaped political violence in El Salvador in 2011, is a member of the criminal gang MS-13, and yet they have provided zero evidence. The Trump administration has set up an arrangement where they are paying El Salvador $6 million to house migrants deported from the United States as a part of President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. This slave labor colony also is not beholden to U.S. constitutional protections, of course. So this is just a person that is married, that has immediate family members in the United States of America,